President Trump is furious with Fed Chair Jay Powell after the Federal Reserve opted to keep rates steady in its July meeting. He took to Truth Social and said of Powell, quote, "He is too late and actually too angry, too stupid, and too political to have the job of Fed Chair." Well, my next guest is on the Senate Banking Committee that conducts oversight of the Fed. GOP Senator Jim Banks of Indiana joins me now. Thank you so much for coming on, Senator.
Good to be with you.
Absolutely. So, as you know, Trump has been berating Powell for months and months, and there's been a big push from some folks in your party on the right to fire Powell. What do you think? Is it time for the president to get rid of Jay Powell?
Well, Powell's days are numbered one way or another. I mean, President Trump and his administration is already vetting and looking at candidates to replace Powell, whether that comes now or when his term expires in a little over, I think, a year. So
should he wait? Should he wait till that time? Should he wait till that term ends? Do you think?
I'm disappointed too, and I know why the president is frustrated. All of the reasons that Powell has given us why interest rates haven't gone down have been wrong. I mean, he's testified before the Senate Banking Committee. I've met with him in private in my office. He blames tariffs, he blames inflation, but the facts speak for themselves. Inflation has dropped to the lowest we've had since the first Trump term, around 2%. Remember, it was double digits during the Biden administration. And then the jobs announcement, $6 trillion of investment because of tariffs, the revenue generated from tariffs. Tariffs have been a net benefit for our country at this point, and the tariffs are going to keep proving to be, with the trade deals that President Trump is crafting, is going to end up being a net win for America. So Powell's days are numbered one way or another. If the president fires Jerome Powell, then I support that move. If he wants to wait until Powell's term expires and replace him with someone better, there are good candidates that are out there. But one last point. The Fed governors meeting this week was historically significant because it was the first time in over 30 years that there was a dissenting vote, and there were two of them. Two dissenting votes against the chairman in favor of lowering rates. We need to lower rates to help families, afford a house, and that's why President Trump is frustrated.
Senator, you mentioned one of the reasons that Powell is cited for not cutting rates is the uncertainty over inflation, the uncertainty over Trump's tariff policies. Economists do say that the uptick in inflation last month did show some signs that tariffs were being passed on to consumers. But I want to ask you about the politics of this, because in a July CNN poll, the American public really did have a sour view of those tariff policies. Trump is underwater by 22% on that issue. Just 39% of the public approve of him on tariffs. So I'm wondering, is your party on the wrong side of public opinion on this issue?
No, and I'll tell you, nowhere in the country has benefited more from tariffs than a manufacturing-heavy state like Indiana. I mean, we've had so many announcements, there are too many to mention in this segment, from GM creating more jobs and more overtime for workers to Honda Civic announcing that they're going to make the next generation Civics in Indiana, not in Mexico or China because of the tariffs. Eli Lilly, $27 billion in pharmaceutical manufacturing in Indiana and in America instead of in China. And that's the big news here too, that China's economy and their industry is faltering, and America's industry, our manufacturing base and investments in technology in the United States of America are increasing. And that's the big story that over time we will tell, that America will see clearly. Even the New York Times had an editorial on their liberal editorial page today saying all the experts were wrong, the sky isn't falling, tariffs have been good, and they're going to continue to be good for America.
But very quickly, Senator, because some companies like Charmin saying that they're going to raise prices on goods, household goods. Are you, such as toilet paper, dish soap, and the like, are your constituents really willing to stomach higher prices because of these policies?
Well, what my constituents are happy about is the number of good-paying jobs that are coming back to the United States of America at steel mills, at automotive factories in Indiana. That's what we're seeing, the increase in pay, the biggest blue-collar pay increase in 60 years because of Donald Trump, due to his economic policies like the tariffs that we've seen in a very long time. That's what matters most. And these companies that are that are threatening to raise prices. The trade deals, the deals that President Trump is landing every day, it's going to smooth out. Again, he always said this is going to be a bumpy ride, but in the long term, this is going to be better for our kids and our grandkids, and that's all proving to be true.
Senator, I want to ask you about some news in the Senate yesterday. A Senate committee approved a bill that would effectively ban stock trading by members of Congress. I'm wondering what you think about that. Given that lawmakers do get briefed on highly sensitive information, do you think that it is time to ban stock trading by members of Congress?
Well, insider trading is already illegal, and members of Congress report. We report our investments, and my wife and I go through this process every year. It's a very transparent process. Members of Congress should never trade stocks based on information that they receive, and if they do, that's already illegal. They should be prosecuted for it. But
what about a total ban on trading?
Yeah, I support that, especially for if you're on a committee, like I'm on the banking committee or the armed services committee. You shouldn't be trading stocks when you have insider information or know where investments are going. And Nancy Pelosi last year, by the way, a 54% return on her investments and her stock trades last year. She's been the one that the public, more than anybody in Washington D.C., knows that Nancy Pelosi benefits from her job on Capitol Hill, or questions about that, and there are serious questions about that should be investigated. And that's what the committee hearing was about yesterday. An amendment to dig into Nancy Pelosi's stock trades that unfortunately failed, but that should pass because there are serious questions in regard to that.
And she supports this bill that did pass the committee yesterday. The president did criticize your Republican colleague, Senator Josh Hawley, for backing that bill and for opposing that amendment. He berated him as a second-tier senator. He also, on a separate matter, attacked Chuck Grassley, reposting attacks against Chuck Grassley. Are you comfortable with the president leveling these very personal attacks against your Republican colleagues?
I understand why President Trump is frustrated. We have a backlog of over 150
but I'm talking about the personal, making it personal against your colleagues.
I don't think this is personal. President Trump, he calls balls and strikes. He's always done that, and the American people listen to President Trump. Whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, he's holding all of us accountable to do what we were elected to do. And President Trump knows we're 6 months into a 4-year administration. We got to get more done. We have to be faster. We've already done big things with the big, beautiful bill, the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, and extending working class tax cuts for American families. But there's so much more to do, and that's why President Trump is frustrated that we're not moving faster and doing even more.
Leslie, I want to ask you, Senator, about this controversy that's been looming over the White House. That's the Jeffrey Epstein files. The president and his team had promised to release them, and a lot of folks on the right had been hoping that they would be released. They've backed away from that promise. Do you think the president should be fully transparent, and the administration should do more to release the files?
President Trump has been very transparent about it. He's ordered Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to release the grand jury testimony and the findings. And
but I'm talking about all the files. Should they release all the files that they have, not the grand jury, but just what they have?
I'm for releasing all of it. Be transparent about it. The victims of Epstein and Maxwell, they deserve justice. And remember, for 4 years, Joe Biden and his DOJ sat on all this and didn't do anything with it. And remember, before that, in President Trump's first term, the Trump DOJ is who arrested and convicted Epstein and put him in jail. So President Trump has been serious about this from the beginning. He's been transparent. Release the grand jury testimony, release the findings. He has nothing to hide. I mean, there's nothing there. If there was something there, they would have gone after him when Joe Biden was in the White House.
All right, we'll see what they ultimately decide to do, and if there's a vote in Congress to release this, we'll see as well. Senator Jim Banks of Indiana, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.